The galactic trade hub Omega-7 was not a beautiful place. It was old, dirty, and crowded. Thousands of ships came and went every day. Millions of aliens walked through its corridors. They came to buy, to sell, to hide, and sometimes to hunt. Yuna had lived on the station for 8 months now. She was 23 years old, small for a human. With dark hair she kept tied back and hands that were always stained with engine grease. She worked as an engineer in the lower decks, fixing broken pipes and damaged wiring. The pay was not great, but it was honest work. She sent half of everything she earned back to Earth, to her mother who was sick and needed medicine. The lower decks were not a nice place to work. The air smelled bad. The lights flickered. Strange creatures moved in the shadows. But Yuna had learned to be invisible. She kept her head down. She did not make eye contact. She finished her work and went home. Humans were new to the galaxy. Only 40 years ago, Earth had made first contact with alien life. Since then, humanity had spread to a few colony worlds and established small trading posts. But compared to species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years, humans were nothing. They were weak. They were primitive. They were barely worth noticing, at least. That is what most aliens believed. Yuna finished her shift at the usual time. Her back hurt from crawling through maintenance tunnels. Her fingers were cut from sharp metal edges. She wanted nothing more than to go back to her small room, eat something warm, and sleep. She took the usual path through the merchant district. It was faster than going around. The shops were closing now, their owners pulling down metal shutters and locking their doors. The crowds were thinning. Soon the corridors would be empty, except for the night workers and the criminals. Yuna walked quickly. She kept her bag close to her body. Inside it was her emergency beacon, a small device that would send a distress signal to station security. She had never used it. She hoped she would never have to. She did not notice the eyes watching her from a dark corner. Gron was a Vraki, one of the most feared species in this sector of space. The Vraki were big, standing 8 feet tall. They had thick scales covering their bodies, tusks growing from their lower jaws, and arms that could crush metal. They were warriors and raiders. They took what they wanted. Gron had been watching the human female for 3 days now. He had learned her schedule. He knew when she worked, when she ate, and when she walked alone through empty corridors. Human females were valuable on certain planets. They were considered exotic, beautiful, rare. This one would sell for a very good price. He signaled to his crew. 5 Vraki warriors emerged from the shadows. They moved quietly for creatures so large. They had done this many times before. Yuna turned a corner and stopped. 2 Vraki blocked the corridor ahead. She spun around, but 3 more had appeared behind her. She was trapped. Her heart began to pound. Her hands started to shake. She looked for an escape route, but there was none. The walls were solid. The doors were locked. She was alone. Gron stepped forward. He was the largest of them, with scars on his face and gold rings through his tusks. He looked at Yuna the way a buyer looks at merchandise. "Human female," he said. His voice was deep and rough. The translator device on his belt turned his words into something she could understand. "Young, healthy, good condition." Yuna pressed her back against the wall. "Stay away from me." Gron made a sound that might have been laughter. They always say that. It does not matter. No one cares about one human on this station. No one will come for you. He was right, Yuna thought. Station security did not care about humans. The other species did not care. She was nothing here. Nobody. Her bag was hanging from her shoulder. The emergency beacon was inside, but she would have to open the bag and find it and press the button. That would take too long. Gron was already moving toward her. "Do not fight," he said. It will be easier if you do not fight. Yuna thought about her mother back on Earth, waiting for money that would never come. She thought about all the things she had planned to do with her life. She thought about dying in some dark room on a planet she would never see Dot, and then she thought about her brother. Taiho was 6 years older than Yuna. He had raised her after their father died. He had worked 3 jobs to pay for her education. He had held her when she cried and made her laugh when she was sad. When she told him she was going to work on a space station, he had not tried to stop her. He had only said, "Be careful. And remember that I am always watching over you." Taiho served aboard the HSS Resolve, a human patrol vessel that was currently docked at Omega 7 for resupply. He was a combat specialist with the United Earth Defense Corps. Yuna did not know exactly what that meant. Taiho never talked about his work, but she had seen the scars on his body. She had seen the way other soldiers looked at him with respect, and sometimes with fear. She had also given him access to her location implant. It was a small device under the skin of her wrist that let him know where she was at all times. He had asked for this before she left Earth. "Just in case," he had said. "Just so I can find you if something goes wrong." Something was going wrong now. Gron reached out his massive clawed hand. He was going to grab her by the throat and drag her away. She could see it in his yellow eyes. She was just cargo to him. Just credits waiting to be collected. Yuna closed her eyes. Far across the station, in a small bunk aboard the HSS Resolve, Taiho was looking at his tablet. The screen showed a map of Omega 7 with a small blue dot marking his sister's location. The dot had stopped moving 5 minutes ago. That was unusual. Yuna never stopped in the corridors. She always walked straight home. Then a second indicator appeared. Stress response detected. Heart rate elevated. Breathing rapid. Taiho was on his feet before the alert finished sounding. He grabbed his jacket and ran. 400 meters separated him from his sister. The corridors were crowded with aliens finishing their day. They were big, slow, and in his way. Taiho did not slow down. He ran like humans were built to run. He ran like his ancestors had run across the plains of Africa, chasing prey until it dropped from exhaustion. He dodged and weaved and pushed through the crowd. Aliens shouted at him in languages he did not understand. He did not care. 90 seconds later, he turned the corner into a narrow corridor between cargo bays. He saw his sister pressed against a wall. He saw 5 Raki warriors. He saw a massive creature with gold rings in his tusks reaching for Yuna's throat. Taiho did not stop running. He did not shout a warning. He simply moved. Gron never saw him coming. Gron's hand was inches from Yuna's throat when something hit him from the side. That had happened so fast that Yuna's brain could not understand it. One moment, the massive Raki was reaching for her. The next moment, he was on the ground. His skull had hit the metal floor with a sound like a hammer striking stone. The impact was so hard that the deck plates vibrated under Yuna's feet. Standing over the fallen slaver was her brother. Taiho was not a large man by human standards. He was 5 feet 10 inches tall, with a lean body and short black hair. He wore simple clothes, a gray jacket and dark pants. He had no weapons in his hands. He had no armor on his body. He looked like an ordinary person, but there was nothing ordinary about the way he stood. His weight was balanced perfectly. His hands were loose in his sides. His breathing was calm and steady, as if he had just been walking instead of running across half the station, and his eyes were completely empty of fear. The 5 Raki warriors stared at him. They did not understand what had just happened. Their leader, the strongest fighter among them, was lying on the floor with blood pooling under his head. This small human had appeared from nowhere and dropped him with a single blow. "Get away from my sister," Taiho said. His voice was quiet. He did not shout. He did not need to. The first Vraki recovered from his shock. He was young, eager to prove himself. He pulled a shock baton from his belt, a weapon that could deliver enough electricity to stop a human heart. He swung it at Taiho's head with all his strength. Taiho was not there. He had moved to the side, just a few inches, just enough. The baton cut through empty air. Before the Vraki could swing again, Taiho caught his arm. Not his wrist, not his hand, but the joint where the arm bent. The elbow. Taiho rotated. The sound was terrible. The Vraki's arm bent in a direction it was not supposed to bend. Bones cracked. Tendons tore. The warrior screamed, a high and awful sound that echoed through the corridor. Taiho let him fall. The second Vraki attacked from behind. He had drawn a blade, a curved knife designed for cutting through armor. He was faster than his friend, smarter too. He did not aim for the head. He aimed for the spine. Taiho dropped low. He went down so fast it looked like his legs had simply disappeared. The blade passed over his head, missing him by an inch. From his low position, Taiho drove his palm into the Vraki's knee. Vraki legs bent backward, like the legs of a bird. The knee joint was strong in some directions, but weak in others. Taiho knew exactly where to strike. The knee bent the wrong way. The Vraki fell, screaming just like his friend. 2 down. 3 still standing. The third warrior was older and more experienced. He did not charge forward like the others. Instead, he pulled out a pulse pistol and took aim. At this range, he could not miss. One shot and the human would die. He pulled the trigger. The energy bolt hit the wall. Taiho was no longer in front of him. He was beside him. He was behind him. The Vraki tried to turn, tried to bring his weapon around, but Taiho was faster. There was a nerve cluster at the base of every Vraki skull. It was protected by thick scales and bone. But there was a gap, a small soft spot where the spine met the head. Taiho's fingers found it. He struck once. The Vraki's eyes rolled back. His body went limp. He dropped like a puppet whose strings had been cut, unconscious before he hit the ground. 3 down. 2 left. The remaining warriors looked at each other. They had conquered dozens of species. They had raided settlements on 100 worlds. They had never been afraid of anything. They were afraid now. Taiho turned to face them. He had not spoken since telling them to get away from his sister. He had not shouted or threatened or boasted. He had simply destroyed their friends with quiet efficiency, like a machine performing a task. "You can run," he said, "or you can stay." They ran. They pushed past each other in their hurry to escape. Their heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor until they faded into silence. They did not look back. On the ground, Gron was stirring. His skull was thick, thicker than any human's, and the blow that would have killed a lesser being had only stunned him. He groaned and tried to rise, his clawed hands searching for something. His fingers found a hidden weapon, a small blade strapped to his leg. He pulled it free and turned toward the human who had humiliated him. Taiho's boot came down on his wrist, the weight of a human body, driven by muscles trained for years, focused through a small point of contact. Gron felt his wrist bones shatter like glass. The blade fell from his useless fingers. Taiho crouched down so he could look the slaver in the eyes. "You lifted a hand to my sister," he said. His voice was still quiet, still calm. "You were going to take her, sell her, hurt her." Gron tried to speak, but pain had stolen his words. "I am being generous," Taiho continued. "I am letting you live. But you should understand something." He leaned closer. "If you ever come near a human again, I will find you. I will not be generous a second time." He stood up and stepped back from the broken creature on the floor. Yuna had not moved from her place against the wall. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were still shaking. She had seen violence before, on news screens and in movies, but she had never seen anything like this. Her brother had destroyed 5 warriors in less than 30 seconds. He had done it without weapons, without armor, without even breathing hard. "Taiho," she whispered. He turned to her. And just like that, the cold emptiness left his eyes. He was her brother again, the man who had raised her and protected her and loved her all her life. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. She could not find words. Taiho crossed the distance between them and wrapped his arms around her. He held her tight, the way he used to hold her when she was a child and had nightmares. "It is okay," he said softly. "You are safe now. I am here." Yuna buried her face in his shoulder and began to cry. Around them, the corridor was silent. The 3 unconscious Raki lay where they had fallen. Their leader groaned softly, cradling his broken wrist. The smell of blood and fear hung in the air. In the distance, alarm lights began to flash. Someone had heard the commotion. Station security would arrive soon. Taiho did not move. He just held his sister and let her cry. "How did you get here so fast?" Yuna asked when she could finally speak. Taiho pulled back and looked at her. There was something in his eyes now, something sad and tired. "I was worried," he said simply. "I am always worried about you." Yuna thought about what she had just seen. She thought about her quiet brother, who never talked about his work, who came home with scars he would not explain, who held her hand at their father's funeral and promised to always keep her safe. She had always known he was special. But until tonight, she had not understood just how special he was. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Security was coming. Taiho stepped back and straightened his jacket. His knuckles were bloody, but his face was calm. "Stay behind me," he said. "Let me do the talking." Yuna nodded. She trusted her brother completely. Whatever came next, she knew he would handle it. Station security arrived in force. 8 officers in heavy armor, carrying weapons that could punch through steel. They surrounded the corridor and pointed their guns at everyone still standing. The commander was a Kalori named Voss. The Kalori were tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. They were known for their intelligence and their calm under pressure. Voss had served on Omega-7 for 15 years. He had seen almost everything, but he had never seen anything quite like this. 3 Raki warriors lay unconscious on the floor. Their leader, Gran, was conscious but broken, holding his shattered wrist against his chest. Blood covered the deck plates. The air smelled like violence. And in the middle of it all stood 2 humans. A small female pressed against the wall, her face wet with tears, and a male of average height, his knuckles bloody, his expression completely calm. Voss had dealt with humans before. Earth had established a small presence on Omega-7 a few years ago. The humans were polite, hardworking, and unremarkable. They kept to themselves and caused no trouble. But Voss had also read the classified reports. The ones that talked about what humans were really capable of. The ones that made the elder races nervous. He was looking at proof of those reports now. "Everyone stay still," Voss ordered. His officers spread out, covering all angles. "What happened here?" Gran spoke first. His voice was weak with pain, but filled with anger. "That creature attacked us. Unprovoked assault. I demand justice." Voss looked at the Raki slaver. Then he looked at the human male. The human had not moved. He had not even flinched when the guns were pointed at him. "Is that true?" Voss asked. "No," Taiho said. His voice was level. "These men cornered my sister. They intended to abduct her. I prevented it." "Lies," Gran snarled. "We were simply walking through the corridor. This human attacked us like an animal." Voss raised one of his 4 hands. "There are cameras in this corridor. We will review the footage and learn the truth. One of his officers pulled out a portable display and accessed the station's security feed. The footage began to play. Voss watched carefully. He saw the human female walking alone. He saw the Vraki warriors surround her. He saw Gron move toward her, saw his hand rise to grab her throat, and then he saw the human male appear. Voss was a trained soldier. He had excellent reflexes and sharp eyes. But even he had trouble tracking what happened next. The human moved like water, like wind, like something that did not obey the normal rules of physics. In seconds, 5 Vraki warriors were on the ground. The footage ended. Voss turned to Gron. You were going to abduct this female. She would have been treated well, Gron said. It was not a denial. Slavery is illegal on this station, Voss replied. You know this. Vraki law does not recognize human claims of personhood. She is property, not a person. Something shifted in the corridor. The temperature seemed to drop. Voss looked at the human male and felt a chill run through his body. Taeho had not moved. His expression had not changed, but something in his eyes had become very, very cold. Say that again, Taeho said quietly. Gron was too stupid or too proud to recognize the danger. Humans are not people. You are animals, prey. The fact that you can speak does not change what you are. Voss stepped between them. He could feel the violence building in the air, like electricity before a storm. That is enough, he said firmly. Gron of the Vraki, you are under arrest for attempted abduction. Your crew will be detained as well. The Vraki Consortium will not accept this, Gron spat. There will be consequences. They will demand reparations. They can file a complaint with the Galactic Council, Voss replied. Until then, you are my prisoner. He signaled his officers. They moved forward to secure Gron and the unconscious warriors. Medical teams were called for the injured. Through all of this, Taeho did not move. He stood perfectly still, watching the Vraki being taken away. His sister had moved to stand beside him, her hand gripping his arm. When the prisoners were gone, Voss approached the 2 humans. I must ask some questions, he said. For my report, of course, Taeho replied. You are military. United Earth Defense Corps. It was not a question. Voss had recognized the way Taeho stood, the way he moved, the way he had disabled 5 warriors with such precise efficiency. Combat specialist, Taeho confirmed. Currently assigned to the HSS Resolve. And the female? My sister. She works as an engineer in the lower decks. She has done nothing wrong. Voss nodded slowly. The footage supports your account. This appears to be a clear case of self-defense. Then we are free to go? Soon, but I must warn you. Voss lowered his voice. The Vraki Consortium is powerful. They have connections throughout this sector. They will not forget what happened here. Taeho looked at him. There was no fear in his eyes. No worry. Just a calm certainty that made Voss uncomfortable. They can try to find me, Taeho said. I am not hard to find. Voss studied the human for a long moment. He thought about the footage he had just watched. He thought about the reports he had read. He thought about what humanity might become as they spread across the galaxy. Your people, Voss said carefully. You are stronger than you appear. We survive, Taeho replied. That is what we do. Yuna spoke for the first time. Can I go home now? I am very tired. Voss looked at her. She was small and fragile looking, with red eyes from crying. But she stood straight, her chin lifted. There was something in her face that reminded him of her brother. Yes, Voss said. You may go. I know where to find you if I have more questions. Taeho put his arm around his sister's shoulders. Thank you, Commander. I appreciate your fairness. They began to walk away. Voss watched them go, the small female and the dangerous male who looked so ordinary until he moved. "Wait," Voss called out. They stopped and turned. Voss hesitated. He was not sure why he wanted to ask, but he needed to know. "Your species," he said. "On your homeworld. What were you? Before you had technology. Before you built cities." Taiho thought about the question. "We were hunters," he said. "We chased animals across great distances until they collapsed from exhaustion. We worked together in groups. We protected our families." He paused. "And when something threatened those we loved, we did not stop until the threat was destroyed." Voss felt the chill again. He had lived among dozens of species. He had seen warriors and predators and killers of all kinds. But something about this human unsettled him in a way he could not explain. "Go home," Voss said. "Get some rest. And be careful." Taiho nodded once. Then he and his sister walked away, disappearing into the station's corridors. Voss stood alone for a long time, thinking about what he had seen and heard. He thought about the Vraki Consortium and their demands for reparations. He thought about the elder races and their fears about humanity. And he thought about what might happen if the galaxy ever gave humans a reason to become hunters again. It was not a comfortable thought. Voss returned to his office and began writing his report. He included every detail, every observation, every piece of footage. He wanted there to be a record. Because he had a feeling that what happened in that corridor was just the beginning. Humanity had been hiding. They had been pretending to be weak, pretending to be harmless, pretending to be just another minor species trying to survive. But now the mask had slipped, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. News traveled fast on Omega 7. By morning, everyone on the station knew what had happened in that corridor. The story changed with each telling. Some said a human had killed 10 Vraki warriors with his bare hands. Others said he had used a secret weapon. A few claimed he was some kind of genetic experiment, a monster created in Earth's laboratories. But everyone agreed on one thing. A human had done something impossible. And that changed everything. Yuna woke up in her small room feeling tired and sore. Her body ached from stress. Her eyes were swollen from crying. For a moment, she lay in bed and wondered if the previous night had been a dream. Then she saw her brother sitting in a chair by the door, watching over her. "You did not sleep," she said. "I slept enough," Taiho replied. It was clearly a lie, but Yuna did not argue. She sat up and looked at him. In the morning light, he looked ordinary. A man in his late 20s with a tired face and kind eyes. No one would guess what he was capable of. "Thank you," she said, "for saving me." Taiho shook his head. "You do not need to thank me. You are my sister. I would do anything for you." Yuna thought about those words. She thought about what her brother had done and what he would have done if those slavers had actually hurt her. "Would you have killed them?" she asked quietly. Taiho did not answer immediately. He looked at his hands, the hands that had broken bones and crushed joints. "I would have done whatever was necessary," he finally said, "to keep you safe." Yuna nodded. She understood. She was not sure how she felt about it, but she understood. They ate breakfast together in Yuna's small kitchen. Simple food, rice and vegetables. The kind of meal their mother used to make back on Earth. They did not talk about what had happened. They talked about home, about memories, about people they missed. For a little while, they were just a brother and sister sharing a meal. But the galaxy would not let them forget. Across the station, the Vraki Consortium was already responding. They had received word of Gron's arrest. They had watched the footage from the corridor. And they were furious. A message was sent to the Galactic Council demanding action. Humans had assaulted Vraki citizens. Humans had interfered with legitimate business. Humans must be punished. The council reviewed the evidence. They watched the same footage that Commander Voss had watched. They saw Gran reaching for an innocent female. They saw Taiho defending his sister. The council rejected the Vraki complaint. This made the consortium even more furious. They began sending threatening messages to human traders across the sector. They talked about revenge. They talked about teaching humanity a lesson, but something strange happened. The threats stopped almost as quickly as they began, because other species had also seen the footage. And they were sharing it everywhere on a dozen worlds. Aliens watched a human male disable 5 Vraki warriors in 30 seconds. They watched him move with speed and precision that should not have been possible. They watched him stand over his broken enemies without fear, without hesitation, without mercy. And they began to ask questions about human evolution. Questions about Earth's gravity, which was stronger than most inhabited worlds. Questions about the human body, which never stopped adapting, never stopped improving, never stopped finding new ways to survive. Questions about what humans could really do if they stopped pretending to be weak. Aboard the HS Resolve, Captain Myre called Taiho to her office. Myre was a woman in her 40s, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded the Resolve for 8 years. She had seen combat. She had lost people. She understood what it meant to protect those under her command. Taiho stood at attention in front of her desk. "You caused a diplomatic incident," Myre said. "Yes, Captain. The Vraki Consortium has filed formal complaints with 3 different governing bodies." "I am aware." "Captain." Myre leaned back in her chair. "Tell me what happened. In your own words." Taiho told her everything. The location alert, the stress signal, the run across the station, the corridor, the slavers, the fight. When he finished, Myre was silent for a long moment. 5 Vraki, she finally said. "In 30 seconds. 27 seconds, Captain. According to the footage." A small smile appeared on Marie's face. "You counted. I always count." Myre stood up and walked to the window of her office. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright against the black void of space. "Earth is asking questions," she said. "The Defense Corps wants a full report. The Diplomatic Service is worried about relations with the Vraki. I understand, Captain. I will accept whatever consequences are necessary." Myre turned to face him. "Consequences? Taiho, you saved a civilian from slavery. You did exactly what you were trained to do." She walked back to her desk and picked up a tablet. "I have received messages from 14 different human colonies in the past 6 hours. They all say the same thing. They are proud. They are grateful. For the first time in 40 years, they do not feel small." Taiho did not know how to respond. "You did not just save your sister," Myre continued. "You reminded the galaxy what humanity is capable of. You gave our people something they desperately needed." "What is that, Captain?" "Hope." Myre set down the tablet. "For 40 years, we have been careful. We have hidden our strength. We have tried to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid making enemies. And what has it gotten us? Our people are kidnapped. Our ships are raided. Our colonies are threatened." She met his eyes. "Maybe it is time to stop hiding." Taiho thought about her words. He thought about Yuna, pressed against that wall, waiting to be taken. He thought about all the other humans across the galaxy, alone and afraid and unprotected. "The Vraki will not forget," he said. "They will want revenge." "Let them try," Myre replied. "We have soldiers like you. We have ships like the Resolve. And we have something the Vraki will never understand." "What is that?" "We protect our own, no matter the cost." Taiho nodded slowly. He understood now. He understood why my ray was not angry, why Earth was not demanding punishment, why the human colonies were sending messages of support. The galaxy had seen a human fight. Really fight. And they had realized something that Taiho had always known. Humans were not prey. They never had been. On Omega 7, Yuna returned to work. She expected things to be the same as before. She expected to be invisible, ignored, forgotten. She was wrong. When she walked through the corridors, aliens stepped aside to let her pass. When she entered the repair bay, her co-workers looked at her with new eyes. When she sat down to eat lunch, strangers approached the table just to say, "Hello." Word had spread. Everyone knew who she was. The human female. The one with the brother. At first, Yuna found the attention uncomfortable. She was not used to being noticed. She was not used to being treated with respect. But slowly, something began to change inside her. She walked a little taller. She spoke a little louder. She stopped trying to be invisible and started being herself. Because she was not alone anymore. She had her brother. She had her people. And now the whole galaxy knew that if you hurt one human, you answered to all of them. That evening, Taiho came to visit her. They sat together in a small room, drinking tea and watching the stars through her tiny window. "I have to return to the Resolve tomorrow," Taiho said. "We are being deployed to the outer colonies." Yuna felt a pang of sadness. "Will I see you again?" "Always." Taiho took her hand. "No matter where I am, no matter how far away, I will always come for you. You know that." Yuna smiled. "I know." They sat in comfortable silence, brother and sister, human and human. Outside, the galaxy watched and waited. Things were changing, and humanity was ready. 1 month passed. The footage from Omega 7 had traveled across the galaxy. It had been viewed billions of times on thousands of worlds. It had been studied by military experts, analyzed by scientists, and debated by politicians. And it had changed everything. On the Vraki homeworld, the consortium held an emergency meeting. The leaders gathered in their great hall, surrounded by trophies from 100 conquered species. They had ruled this sector for centuries. They had never known fear. Now they were afraid. "The humans must be taught a lesson," one leader growled. "We cannot allow this insult to stand." "And how do you propose we teach them?" Another asked. "You saw the footage. One human destroyed 5 of our best warriors. One human without weapons. He was enhanced, modified. No natural creature could move like that. Our scientists have studied the footage. There is no evidence of modification. The human's movements are consistent with natural biology." Silence fell over the hall. "What are you saying?" The first leader demanded. "I am saying that humans are not what we thought they were. I am saying that their weakness was a mask. I am saying that if we attack them, we may not win." The debate continued for hours. Some wanted war. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to pretend that nothing had changed. In the end, they reached a compromise. Humans would be removed from the list of viable targets. No Vraki ship would raid human vessels. No Vraki slaver would touch human citizens. The incident on Omega 7 would be forgotten. It was not justice. It was not honor. It was survival. Because the Vraki had finally understood something that the elder races had known for years. Humans were dangerous. Across the galaxy, other species reached similar conclusions. The slaver guilds updated their protocols. Pirates adjusted their routes. Criminals learned to avoid human space, not because humans were powerful, not because they had great fleets or advanced weapons, but because humans protected each other with a ferocity that made no logical sense. Attack one human, and others would come. It did not matter how far away they were. It did not matter how many enemies stood in their way. They would come, and they would not stop until the threat was eliminated. This was not rational behavior. This was something older, something deeper, something burned into human nature by millions of years of evolution. Pack instinct, tribal loyalty, the willingness to die for family. Most species had lost these traits long ago. They had evolved beyond such primitive bonds. They had become civilized, individual, alone. Humans had not died, and that made them terrifying. On Omega 7, Yuna's life had changed completely. She was no longer invisible. When she walked through the station, aliens greeted her by name. When she worked on repairs, her colleagues asked for her opinions. When she ate in the cafeteria, other humans sat with her, proud to be associated with the famous engineer, whose brother had defeated 5 slavers. Yuna was not sure she deserved the attention. She had not done anything brave. She had just been a victim who was lucky enough to have a brother who loved her. But over time, she began to understand that she represented something larger than herself. She represented Hope. For 40 years, humans had felt small. They had felt weak. They had felt like outsiders in a galaxy that did not want them. But now they walked with their heads held high. Now they looked aliens in the eye. Now they believed that they belonged among the stars. All because one man had refused to let his sister be taken. One afternoon, a young Kalari approached Yuna in the repair bay. He was barely out of adolescence, with bright blue skin and nervous movements. "Excuse me," he said. "You are Yuna? The human?" Yuna looked up from her work. "Yes, can I help you?" The young Kalori hesitated. "I wanted to ask you something. About your people." "Of course. What do you want to know?" "Is it true," he said slowly, "that humans used to hunt predators? On your homeworld? For fun?" Yuna thought about the question. She thought about Earth's history, about the wolves and bears and lions that her ancestors had faced. She thought about the way humans had spread across the planet, adapting to every environment, surviving every challenge. And she thought about her brother, standing over 5 broken warriors, his eyes cold and empty. "Some of us still do," she said. The Kalori stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly and walked away. Yuna returned to her work, but she was smiling. Far away, aboard the HSS Resolve, Taiho received a message from his sister. She told him about her day, about her work, about the aliens who now treated her with respect. She told him that she missed him, that she was proud of him, that she could not wait to see him again. Taiho read the message 3 times. Then he saved it to his personal files, next to all the other messages from Yuna that he had saved over the years. Captain Myray found him in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Thinking about home?" she asked. "Always," Taiho replied. Myray stood beside him. "The galactic news networks are still talking about you. They are calling you the human warrior. Some of them think you are a legend made up by Earth's propaganda department. Let them think what they want. The Defense Corps has received thousands of applications since the footage went public. Young people who want to be like you, who want to protect their families, their colonies, their species." Taiho said nothing. "You started something," Myray continued. "Something that cannot be stopped. Humanity is waking up. We are remembering what we are." She turned to face him. "What we have always been." Taiho thought about those words. He thought about his sister, safe on Omega 7, no longer afraid. He thought about the humans across the galaxy, walking taller, speaking louder, believing in themselves. He had not planned any of this. He had just wanted to save Yuna. He had just wanted to keep his promise. But sometimes small actions had big consequences. "The galaxy is watching us," Myray said. "They are trying to decide what we are. Prey or predator, victim or threat. What message do you want to send them?" Taiho looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were billions of humans, living on dozens of worlds, building new lives in an unfriendly galaxy. They were teachers and doctors and engineers and soldiers. They were mothers and fathers and children. They were everything that made humanity worth protecting. "Tell them this," Taiho said quietly. "We are not looking for war. We do not want enemies. We just want to live our lives and build our future." He paused. "But if anyone hurts our people, we will come for them. We will find them. And we will show them why our ancestors were the most successful predators on Earth." Myre smiled. "That is a good message." They stood together in silence, watching the stars wheel past. On Omega 7, Yuna finished her shift and walked home through the merchant district. The same corridors where she had almost been taken, where her brother had saved her, where everything had changed. She was not afraid anymore. She walked with her head high and her shoulders back. She looked aliens in the eye and smiled when they looked away first. She was human, and she was not ashamed. When she reached her small room, she stood at the window and looked out at the station, at the ships coming and going, at the vast darkness of space beyond. Somewhere out there, her brother was watching over her. Somewhere out there, humanity was growing stronger. Somewhere out there, the future was waiting, and Yuna knew, deep in her heart, that everything would be okay. Because humans protected their own. Always. No matter what. The galaxy had learned that lesson in a dark corridor, when a slaver lifted his hand to a human girl and hit the ground hard.